What's up guys, JV2017 here, and I'm bringing you a new Fallout 4 tips and tricks video. And today I wanted to talk about DLC, because this is something I'm sure a lot of us have been wondering about for a while now. We're over 2 months since the release of the game, and Bethesda hasn't made a peep on what the DLC is or when we should expect it. Yes, there are hundreds of hours in the base game, but if you played Fallout 4 for over 300 hours like I have, you're definitely itching to see what's coming next. Before we start, I do want to point out that this video is pure speculation. There's no confirmed info from Bethesda at this time that I'm uploading this video. So we're really just dealing in what ifs and hypotheticals here. First, let's talk about the release date, and the only official wording we've had from Bethesda themselves is early 2016. I think that was around E3 or maybe a little bit after. They said the first DLC would come in early 2016, and that's the only thing we've heard from them. It's incredibly ambiguous, and honestly, this could mean the first half of the year, which gives them until July 1st, and honestly, I don't believe that. I don't think we're getting the first DLC in like June or something, but it's something I'm keeping in the back of my mind. Of course, they announced the game and it came out the same year. We don't see that a lot these days. Maybe the DLC is going to take them a little longer. We're not really sure, but my personal expectation is that I want to see the first DLC come out by March 1st. Honestly, if it's not out by then, I'm going to be disappointed. Now, I haven't bought my season pass yet, but I'm sure some of you that have your season pass, that would be disappointing for you too. If the first DLC didn't come out until March 1st or after, I would personally be disappointed if I put that money down already. Now, I think it's relevant to look at a little background info on the history of Bethesda and DLC with Fallout 3. Now, in Fallout 3, Bethesda released 5 DLCs within 1 year of release. And I gotta say, I'm the biggest fan of this DLC in that game. I think it's the best DLC of any game I've ever played. But they managed to pull off 5 all within a year of the game's release. Very impressive. I don't know, I don't think we'll see anybody else do that kind of volume of content in that kind of time. But anyways, it's important to point out that Operation Anchorage, the first DLC for Fallout 3, came out on January 27th of 2009. However, the base game of Fallout 3 with no DLC came out a little earlier than when Fallout 4 came out on the calendar year on October 28th of 2008. If you look back at a calendar, you'll see that it took Bethesda 13 weeks to put out their first DLC for Fallout 3. And if that trend is anything that we can apply to Fallout 4, that means we should expect the first DLC around February 9th. Now, I know that's not an exact science. It may take longer with the newer technology or whatever, but if it was to come out on February 9th, you would have thought we would have heard something by now. That's only like 2 weeks away, 2 to 3 weeks away. And so I don't think it's coming out on February 9th. I just really hope it's coming out before March 1st. Moving on, let's talk about the setting, which has really been my favorite thing about Fallout DLCs in the past. They bring you to new locations and new areas of the wasteland so you can kind of experience new and interesting stories. So some interesting things I've seen. The first one is New York. New York would be incredibly interesting. I would love to see Times Square kind of in this wasteland Fallout universe. The only thing that worries me with that is all of the buildings. I don't know how they're going to render all that, how the engine's going to handle that, how are you going to go up, have all of that verticality. Really, the only verticality we have in Fallout 4, the base game, is Trinity Tower. That's really high up there. Once you get up there, though, whatever system you're on, it kind of, stutters and you lose frames. I mean, this is a Bethesda game, but that would be a reality with New York unless they just flattened a lot of the buildings. You can only go in a few. I could see them doing that, but New York is a very interesting place for DLC. Also, Pennsylvania would be interesting. There's a lot of history in Pennsylvania, and I love how Fallout in the past, especially with Fallout 3, had a lot of history, with Lincoln's Repeater and going to get the Declaration of Independence and all of that fun stuff. I would love to see them do that in Pennsylvania. Rhode Island is another place they could go. It's kind of quaint. It's on the coast. They could have some kind of coastal, maybe a little more water involved in that DLC. Maybe you could go on a boat. Maybe the Raiders have made some entire complex on the coast of Rhode Island and you could go explore it. There's a lot of lighthouses and whatnot. So I think Rhode Island could make for kind of like a Point Lookout 2.0 kind of DLC. I would really be interested to see that. Another really interesting piece of DLC could be something like a pre-war sequence. Somehow we can go back and, do something in the pre-war that really matters, some kind of really interesting storyline. And so it could be similar to Operation Anchorage with a simulation. We're just, going through a simulation and that's all it is. Or it could be like Tranquility Lane in Fallout 3. That quest, one of my favorite quests in that game. Super duper creepy. However, I think it'd be cool to explore more of the pre-war world because clearly they made a lot of assets for the pre-war world. It'd be nice to see them, repurpose those or use those in an interesting way that really matters in Fallout 4. Instead of going somewhere else, they could also do a DLC within the Commonwealth that we already know, kind of a main story extension similar to Broken Steel in Fallout 3. And so I don't know where they could go with that because, of course, if you choose a faction and you play the game all the way through, I would say the Commonwealth is just drastically changed, especially if you choose the Institute, for example, kind of spoilery here, but if you choose anyone except for the Institute, you're pretty much destroying the Institute. And so one thing I could see them doing is assuming that you did kill the Institute and then there's like a resurgence of the Institute, or there's like one synth leader that takes over instead of Father. But still, that presents some problems. I don't know how they could do it. Same goes for the Brotherhood. I don't know how they're going to handle that. If you go against the Brotherhood, you kill Elder Maxon. Like, what is the Brotherhood at that point? You know, is there another commander that's going to swoop in, another leader, another elder of the BOS? I guess that could happen. But again, that relies on the fact that you destroyed the BOS. So it's kind of tricky in that sense. I'm not sure how they're going to go with that. We could see the Enclave come back. A lot of people have talked about that. So it's really interesting how they could extend the main story. Finally, let's talk about the actual content of the DLCs. What are we going to see in it? What are the new things that we're going to encounter within the game? So obviously there's going to be new quests and new interesting stories to tackle and explore. I really feel like they do a great job of telling stories within their DLC. Point Lookout was one of my favorites. It felt like this weird lucid dream and I enjoyed the story that it had to tell. And so I hope we see some similar kind of caliber stories within the DLC for Fallout 4. And additionally, I think we're going to see some new perks. It just makes sense. They've always done that with DLC, add some new perks. However, I don't think they're going to fit into the perk chart. It doesn't really make sense. Like, I don't think they'd extend the perk chart down to like 11 or 12, so you need like 12 strength for the new perk. I think it'll be more like, here, you know, there's 5 magazines in the DLC. You have to find all of them to get all 5 ranks of this new perk. I mean, that's how it worked with like the Barbarian perk with Grognak in the main game, in the base game. That would make the most sense to me. Potentially, they could introduce new companions. I think this would be really interesting. Some kind of new companion that relates to whatever interesting story they're trying to tell in the DLC. I could see that happening, and also I would hope that we could bring that companion back with us in the Commonwealth and experience the rest of the game. I guess they'd have to record a lot of lines of dialogue in order to pull that off. I think it's safe to say we're going to see some new and interesting weapons and armor. Something like a Tesla cannon, of course, from Broken Steel. That would be really awesome to see in the game. Something wacky, maybe even overpowered. I don't think that's too much of an issue because the game is already really easy. I'd really like to see something like that. And also some new workshop items relating to the DLC. So if we go to, you know, Maine or something, I'd like to see some lobsters I could put on the wall. You know, that's just a really silly example, but it seems like there's plenty of room to add new content with the workshop mode. One more big thing that I almost forgot is mods. That's a huge expectation that a lot of people have with the first DLC. The GEC editor on PC is something that people expect to have with this first DLC, and then also the introduction of mods on the Xbox One and the PS4. You know, it could be the introduction of mods that's causing them to kind of hold back news on a release date. They're not going to say anything until they know exactly when it's going to be ready, and they just don't have it ready yet. And if that's the valid reason, then I totally understand. I just can't help but be excited about this thing. I know a lot of us are, and a lot of us get impatient. That's pretty much where I am at this point. I just really want to hear something as soon as possible. The final thing I want to comment on is this underwater DLC idea. I don't think it's a reality. I don't buy those rumors because it makes a lot more sense that Bethesda just made a side quest and then scrapped it and had that harpoon gun. Accidentally, they left it in the game, and, you know, people found out a way to get it because people are really smart. So I agree there's way too much open water on the eastern side of the map, so it could make sense, but the scrapped quest idea seems far more likely to me. So I'd like to get a conversation going in the comments on this video. I'd like to know, what are your expectations for the Verse DLC? When do you think this thing's going to come out, and where do you think it'll be, you know, in terms of setting, in terms of content, and all of that stuff? Let me know what you think. Share all of that in the comment section below. Alright guys, today we talked about rumors and speculation for the first DLC for Fallout 4, and next time we will cover more Fallout on my channel, so stay tuned for more Fallout 4 tips and tricks videos. If you learned something new, remember to hit that like button, I would really appreciate it, and don't forget to subscribe for more unique weapon guides, build guides, and general tips and tricks videos. Talk to you guys next time, peace.